a geek. Talking baseball every week. 'Cause they're Gleeman and a geek.
And welcome to Gleeman the Geek, presented by Blackstack Brewing. I've got good news. They're available in stores near you now. You don't have to go to their tap room anymore. I'm John Bonus of Twins Daily. With me, Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic.
I've got bad news. You had good news. I have bad news.
Yeah.
The Twins kind of stink right now.
Yeah, they do kind of stink. Because they were so depressing this week, I thought last night I'd cheer myself up by going to a Minnesota Golden Gophers football game.
Yeah, how'd that go for you, buddy? Yeah.
Boy, it's a tough week to be a Minnesota sports fan. And the Vikings opener's coming up.
Tough week. Tough week, huh? Yeah. Tough week.
Tough lifetime.
Tough century. Tough millennia. Yeah, the Twins right now are in a 2-8 stretch. The weird part about it,
I was expecting the word tailspin there.
Sure, tailspin, free fall, whatever you want to call it. The weird part is, like, they've definitely played badly. I think on multiple aspects of the team has been sloppy and just mistake prone, and
Sure.
we can talk about all that for sure. Oh, goody. But there was 2 or 3 losses in there that even if you play halfway decent,
Right.
you're going to win those. They had the 2 blown leads in the 7th and 8th bullpen wise, and then a couple extra innings losses in there. Yeah. So you could have very easily gone, 4-6 or something. Sure. Not that that's some accomplishment.
Right.
It's probably the results are probably worse than they, I don't want to say deserve, because they deserve these losses. They played really poorly. But then the other,
maybe they don't accurately reflect the quality of sort of the team right now, but
yeah, but I don't know.
But I mean that was part of what I think we talked about, like I said, like a month ago when things were already looking a little thin, and we're like, They just got to kind of keep things rolling. They're doing a good job of doing that, and now it feels like the wheels are falling.
Yeah,
off a little bit.
I would say like a lot of the stuff we feared coming true is coming true. Unfortunately,
things are snowballing,
and that lack of, I would say, quality veteran depth is being exposed with, the bullpen, I would say the lineup to some extent. The weird part is the rotation, which is filled with 3 rookies right now.
Right, yes.
It hasn't been amazing or anything, but it's probably of the, bullpen lineup
pretty
rotation.
Good.
It's
right, yeah.
It's that one that's been above average at least.
Right.
With those, and those rookies have looked good. We can talk about Festa and Matthews and all that a little later. But yeah, it's, I would say, like, you're without Correa and Buxton, and so the lineup becomes inconsistent because those are 2 of your probably 3 best hitters, or your 2 best hitters. And then also the defense becomes inconsistent because you're removing your center fielder and shortstop, and you're having to both play guys like at positions you would prefer not to play them, like with Willie Castro or Eddie Julian or Margot in center field, or even Martin in center field. But then also you lose a lot of your in-game flexibility because Martin's stuck at shortstop, and so you end up not being able to sub your best defense out there. And
Castro stuck at shortstop.
What did I say, Martin?
If Martin was stuck at shortstop, that would be a new step.
Jeez. Maybe tonight. We'll see. You see something new at the ballpark every day, they say. And then, the bullpen has just gotten thin. And they made a couple moves, which we're going to talk about.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I would say just sloppy, and also, sloppy teams, where does that cross or blend together, or where does the line start between, like, sloppy and just lacking talent or experience?
Or trying to do too much.
Well, right, which sort of goes with that. And I'm not giving them an excuse to play sloppily.
Right.
They made too many base running mistakes, too many bad fielding plays. All that. I don't know if the situational hitting has been that great. Obviously, there's been a couple of plays where a runner gets sent or doesn't get sent that have been a hot topic, which we can get into here in a minute, too. I'm not excusing any of that. That all happened, and I think Baldelli even was pretty harsh against it after each game. But they got a lot of guys on the roster that they prefer not to be on the roster, and even some of the guys that were going to be on the roster anyway are now pushed into much bigger roles at spots where they're not as comfortable at, and so that is going to lead to talent, inexperience, unfamiliarity leads to the sloppiness too. So they just need to get their guys back. And unfortunately, I mean, I think Buxton's going to be back relatively soon, it sounds like. It wouldn't surprise me if he were back, early next week, I guess.
Yeah, but I thought that last week. About this time.
Yeah, although they weren't really saying that last week. But Brooks Lee, I think, will probably be called up on September 1st once they get to add 2 more players. Probably it'll be 1 position player and 1 pitcher. I would expect Brooks Lee to get called up then, which helps the infield a lot. You might, at that point, if Buxton comes back, you might see Julian get sent back to the AAA. But Correa's return is very much not imminent. I'm just speculating here, obviously, but I don't think there's been any significant progress. I think they're frustrated by what's developed here.
He is frustrated by what has developed.
I mean, he talked about, we talked to him, I don't know, 4 days ago or something like that. And he basically said a couple of weeks ago, which would have been like 2.5 weeks ago now or 3 weeks ago now, he had a setback while trying to run in cleats. That's like one of the last tests. So they had to sort of restart it and take a different approach. And now there hasn't been as much progress with that. So, I mean, he's already been out for what?
Since the beginning of July.
2 months, basically.
Almost.
Yeah.
7 weeks, maybe 6 weeks.
I mean, put it this way. He will be out 2 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's not coming back before.
So the question now is, I wouldn't doubt whether he can return at all. I think, if he wants to play, it's something you could play at. It would be a very diminished capacity. That's really the question is if it's not going to heal up here in weeks, if it's going to take months, which is what happened last year too on the other foot. That's how plantar fasciitis works. But then I guess the question is is he playing at 65%? Is he better than what your other options are for that role?
Right.
Shortstop or even lineup. Sure. And I don't know that that's clear. He wasn't very good last year when he played through this. Yeah. And this seems to be worse, or at least there's going to be less, getting used to it. And then the question is okay, well, so if he's not going to help you, then maybe you just give him the maximum amount of time off, which they've already gone almost 2 months, but you could give him another 3 weeks, let's say, and have him just try to play the last homestand of the season, which is 6 games.
If you're confident that you're going to make the postseason one way or the other.
But that's the problem. Is 2 problems with that. One, you got to make the playoffs for that to matter.
Right.
And then 2, he will then not only be jumping in at a diminished capacity, although hopefully the extra rest maybe will have helped a little bit, but he won't have played then hardly at all. So what are you getting in the playoffs? So yeah, unfortunately, I would say that injury has taken a unexpected and disappointing turn. Just through a lack of progress.
Yeah, it's just not made a turn.
Right.
It's just we haven't seen the rebound for it yet.
So that's the state of, and then also with Joe Ryan, which this is not unexpected at all. He was officially transferred to the 60-day injured list, which means he's ineligible to pitch in the regular season again. Right. He could come back in the second round of the playoffs, I guess, theoretically. But so yeah, those guys are all out, and then I think I'm not sure when we talked about this, but probably on the Patreon, that Kirilloff had his rehab halted after 1 game at AAA because of more soreness in his back. That one sounds like more of a, well, if he comes in one day and says it feels better, he can restart the rehab, basically.
Right.
But I certainly would not expect to see him again this season.
Do we hear anything about Paddock yet? I know he had that. He was originally scheduled for an MRI on the 27th.
So Paddock had the MRI, got the clean bill of health. Everything's cleared up, and what day? 2 days ago, threw from 60 feet for the first time. He hadn't picked up a baseball in 2 months since July, basically. So he threw from 60 feet. Then, assuming that went okay, then you advance. You do that a couple times. You throw a bullpen session. Then you advance to throwing against live hitters. Then you go into rehab. Then you go on whatever. I'd be surprised if he came back too, to be honest. I think he's just going to run out of time. And certainly if he did come back, it would have to be as a playoff reliever.
Well, I think that's what he said. I think he came out saying, I plan to be back as a reliever for the postseason, basically.
Yes, so, I'm saying I would be surprised by that. Sure. But yeah, that's the only remaining possibility. So that's the state of the injury. I guess the good news is hopefully you're going to get Lee on, Sunday?
Yeah,
and
that'd be the first.
Buxton, I would say, hopefully shortly or on that point, which those would both help. Again, although they've both been out and they weren't, Lee wasn't very good before he went on the IL, and Buxton, who knows, he's been gone now for 2 months.
How much of that was shoulder related versus?
But
I didn't really know
how much. It's not like they put a magic wand over it and made it disappear completely, I'm going to assume. But so that's the state of the team. We talked on the Patreon, which is Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. In addition to the Friday free show, we do Monday and Wednesday episodes commercial free exclusively on Patreon. If you join us right now through the stretch run and hopefully the playoffs, it'll cost you like $10. Yeah, basically.
And the bad news is that we're not going to be doing a free show next week, and we're not going to be doing a free show the week after that. I'm going to be in Brazil.
Yes, but we will be doing Monday and Wednesday, or Monday and Thursday probably Patreon shows. So join us on there, and you will get a couple episodes a week still. So what we talked about a lot, I guess, on the last one there a few days ago was that they might just be running out of gas.
Right, that's right.
And part of it is, I don't want to say unavoidable because a lot of these injured guys have had injuries before, but unavoidable in the sense that their guys aren't available to play.
Get hurt.
And then part of it is self-inflicted. You forgot to fill up with gas, basically. What do you mean your tank is empty?
At the trade deadline? Yeah, right. Yeah.
We've just passed a station, a mile back.
We all knew that was the last station at which to fill up for gas.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the sign said last station until next season.
That's right.
And you you picked up, I don't know, some beef jerky in Trevor Richards, who didn't even make it a month, and now you're back on the road and you have no gas.
Yeah.
That's my worry, is that they're just sort of, if they can cross the finish line, and the truth is they're still about 80% to make the playoffs.
Yes.
Because
I saw that
Cleveland lost 3 or 4 to Kansas City, and so the whole division kind of came back a little bit, and Boston continues to be really bad, and Seattle hasn't been very good, and so their chances to make the playoffs are much better than not.
Right.
So maybe you can just sort of coast into the finish line, and then who knows what happens in October.
Right.
But, that would be my worry right now. You got the Blue Jays coming to town for 3 in a playoff matchup. They have struggled all year, but they're still a 500-ish team with some star power, and you're going to see Gaussman and Barrios. Vlad Guerrero Jr. has been pretty good. So this is another dangerous series that you could easily – look, if they play as poorly as they have the last 2 series, they're going to lose. You're going to lose the most everyone but the White Sox if you play that poorly.
That's it, yeah. That we're not talking about an easy stretch of the schedule. We're not talking about a particularly hard stretch of the schedule. The Braves were probably other than Baltimore, that last weekend is probably the toughest series they're going to face.
Well,
but
at Cleveland and
the
Kansas City one's now looking.
Those are the ones you want.
Division.
right, that's right. Those are the games you want, the hard games you want to be facing. That Cleveland series is the week of the 16th. We're actually going to be doing a Twins Daily watch party at Glick's. If keep your ears open for that on Twins Daily for one of those games. They are fortunate in that they haven't fallen further out of this given the slump. But they also have wasted maybe their last best opportunity of really winning the division. Yes. They're down to about a 14% chance right now.
It's not like odds, right? It's not that they torpedoed their playoff chances,
right?
Although if they continue to play like this, they will. But it's more you've kind of fallen back from the pace here that you would hope to actually gain some ground on down the stretch, or at least put yourself in position. If they win 2 or 3 of those games that we just talked about that they just could have easily won if they just played like anything but poorly, you'd be tied for the division lead, and your playoff odds would be like 90-something% easily. Right. They've kind of blown that opportunity here, but Baldelli talked pregame last game. He basically said, we're in a pretty great spot here. Like if someone just dropped us into this spot on September 1st, let's say, we're in the most competitive spot you could possibly have, which was we're 2 or 3 games out of winning the division. We're 2 and 3 games out from dropping out of the playoffs. Right. So we got to go.
Right. This is, we talked in April about how they've kind of reduced their They'd kind of lost their margin for error for the rest of the season by that slow start and trying to catch up to Cleveland. That Cleveland had a little bit of a buffer zone. Well, fortunately for the Twins, they also, by playing well in July and June and getting to the point where, literally like a week and a half ago, they were 17 games above 500. Right. They gave themselves a little bit of cushion versus, Boston versus Seattle, versus the teams that were chasing them. And this is the payoff for that, for lack of a better word. Is that you're,
and also they're fortunate that the division has come back to the pack a little bit, which is really just Cleveland.
Well, that's true.
But they're unfortunate in the sense that coming into the season, we didn't expect Cleveland to be this good.
Sure.
And I certainly didn't expect Kansas City.
I still don't believe they're good, partly because we keep beating them.
So they're unfortunate in the sense that the division is much, much stronger.
Right.
Like this record that they have right now, last year would be leading the division.
Sure.
So it's a different perception of where they're at, even with the same record. But they're also pretty fortunate in that, you got the AL East runner-up is going to win the first wild card. Then you have the second-place team probably in the Central.
Yeah.
And then the third-place team in the Central. Like like you said, the Bostons and the Seattles and like the Detroits and tossing Toronto and Tampa Bay, who are much below where they expected to be. Those teams are like struggling just to stay above 500. So they're fortunate in the sense that just sort of hanging on to a wild card spot is really should be easy.
Well, and in fact,
any minimal effort.
And might even be fortunate because of all the wild card spots that you want, probably the sixth one, the last one is probably the one that is the most interesting because you're got a good chance of facing the AL West winner if you get that last wild card spot, as opposed to
the Central winner
or in the AL East or potentially
that's gotten a little
the Central
closer.
winner.
Yeah.
You're right. Either way.
Now this would be fun. No matter who wins the Central, it would be very fun if the Central becomes sort of a dogfight, let's call it, and they slip behind Houston, which Houston has played pretty well now here for about 2 or 3 months. But then the Central winner plays third in the Central. So you could get, Kansas City, Minnesota, Kansas City, Cleveland, Minnesota. Like there's all sorts of fun versions of that.
Yes,
and then you also, it's not great if you won the division and then if you lose 2 out of 3 to the team that finished third, it was like, well, what did we play for the division for? Yeah. The other thing we've talked...
If the Twins end up getting to face the Royals, I'm going to feel pretty confident.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Even Cleveland. I know the Twins haven't done well against Cleveland, but I'm not going to be... you play them a million times.
Right.
But the other thing is, 2 weeks ago, let's say, we were talking about how crucial, and it's still true, but how crucial winning the division is versus getting in via wild card, because it's still true, but it was much more likely to be true a couple weeks ago that winning the Central this year is going to mean the number 2 seed and a first-round bye. So you can just skip the coin toss to get to the second round. Well, if Houston surpasses the AL Central, then
Houston's what, 3-4 games back, 4 games back?
Yeah,
right
but
now?
I mean, we're talking about they've gained
they're not 6 or 8 like they
10
used to
games
be.
in the last whatever.
Yeah.
Then you still want to win the division because you're getting the series at home. But if you win the division like we did like we saw last year with the Twins, you just are the 3rd seed and you get 2 out of 3 at home against the last wild card. It's not as much of an advantage, but you still want to push for that division, and that's the chance they really, dropped here.
Right.
Was the chance to really push not only for the division title, but for the number 2 seed and a bye and all that stuff. And their chances of doing that, of accomplishing that, have shrunk to a real minuscule level here. So that's the unfortunate part. The fortunate part is Baldelli said a couple times, let's just get dropped right here and start right here and go.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're certainly in a real interesting spot. And you control a decent amount of your own destiny in that 8 out of the remaining 8 out of the remaining 30 games are Cleveland and Kansas City.
7, I think. But yes,
okay,
right,
and you have a Boston series in there too.
You're right.
So basically, a third of your games are against the 3 teams that you're kind of directly competing against for playoff spots. And so, if you do well there, you're going to put yourself in the driver's seat to at least make the playoffs.
And the team you're suffering through this stretch through right now might not be if you do make it to the postseason, could be a very different looking.
Well,
team.
that's the hope.
What
it all kind of hinges on
part
that.
of what is so frustrating about watching the timelines of Buxton and Correa and whatever is there doesn't seem to be an upward trend. Right. It seems to be a level trend. If we were all sitting there like, yep, it's just a matter of 2-3 weeks, we're gonna get there, then we'd be more like, well, just let's hope that everybody else stays healthy. Let's hope Miranda stays healthy and Lewis stays healthy.
But those guys were supposed to initially be 2 or 3 weeks, and instead it's looking like a month or 2 months.
Right. It doesn't. It seems to have stagnated. Right. And otherwise, you can take a look and go, yeah, I mean, the bullpen's in tough shape, but, we got Varland on the way. We've got maybe Paddock coming back. We've got, maybe we can find some arms in the minor leagues that can end up helping, or you can take a look at the lineup and say, yeah, but we've got our middle of the order guys. We've got our defensive stalwarts in center field.
Except now
coming back.
The problem is, by the time guys come back, you'll have new injuries.
Well, potentially that is true.
I mean, that's what we've seen. Before we go on to talk about some of the news and notes and stuff from the week, let's talk about our first sponsors here.
Presenting sponsor.
You talked about them at the beginning. Yeah, Black Stack Beer.
I am so glad they have found a wider distributor and that you can now find them in your local stores because, I mean, they've been even amongst the craft brew community, they have been known as one of those.
The beer snobs?
The beer snobs.
Yeah.
They are known as one of those ones that is known for their beer. Craft breweries can be known for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Not that many are known for but these guys just make kick-ass beer.
That is true. We know that from going around breweries.
that is true.
A lot of it's it's a great location.
Right.
Beer's all right.
Good
no,
community,
this is legitimately.
Good brands. They do good work. This one just makes great beer. And you can
go drink it there.
Yes.
It's near 94 and 280. And if you just want some at home, you can pick it up by going to Black Stack Beer's website, and then there's a where to buy page, and they're constantly adding new places that they distribute to. And if you live by a place that doesn't distribute them, tell them, hey, you should get some Black Stack.
They are especially known for their IPAs. Their flagship is their local 755 New England IPA. But I think if you go to your local liquor store, you're going to find a number of their IPAs, but also other stuff like you like Pilsners or Pale Ales or whatever. Black Stack Brewing. Stop by maybe on your way to or from the fair, 94 and 280. That's their tap room. But even better, just ask for them right at their local liquor store.
RotoWire is sponsoring us at a good time because it's fantasy football draft season.
Because I'm in panic mode. That's why.
Yeah. Here's the offer from RotoWire. And John and I have been long before they subscribed. We've used RotoWire. And you can use it. I use it just in my baseball writing because they have great player databases, player news databases for all sports where they just keep tabs on every bit of news every year. So you can look back through a guy's entire career and basically get sort of a timeline of when things happen. But the thing we're really highlighting today is if you're doing a fantasy football draft here coming up, or if you're doing 50 of them.
This weekend, right? Yeah.
They are offering a free 2-day trial, and it's totally free in the sense that they don't even ask for a credit card. You just go to rotowire.com/Gleeman. They will give you a 2-day pass to the entire website. You can customize cheat sheets. You can look at all their draft analysis. You can look at all their stats and all their other stuff.
Right.
You can draft
all their player injury news. Like, is this the wide receiver that's fallen to me? Is it because he's hurt? It turns out, 2 days ago he's reported having a little hamstring.
And then do your draft. Do all your drafts in that 2-day window if you can. Fit them all in there. And then decide for yourself, is this a product worth using? And they're so confident that you'll go, boy, this was really a good
I'm
website.
confident, too, because I'll tell you, even when you have a bad draft, they can save your season. You will find players to pick up throughout the season. So, again, RotoWire, that's ROTO Wire, WIRE.com, all one word, rotowire.com/Gleeman. Go there. Don't even bring your credit card, but check it out.
Okay. Let's. The other thing, they do have the tiebreaker over Kansas City.
Yes, they do.
So theoretically, if you view them as sort of equals, which that's subjective, obviously, but it'd be better for the Twins, like really down the stretch, if Kansas City were the team they were like a game behind.
Yeah, right.
Because then if you tie them, because there's no longer a game 163 or a game 164 scenario,
right.
It's just head-to-head. And so if the Twins tie Cleveland wins the division. If the Twins tie Kansas City, the Twins win the division. So that is worth about a half game. I mean, just from a math standpoint. Sure. So that's big, too.
Scoreboard watching season.
Yes. Yeah. So, I don't know, let's see. We also, some of the things we've seen, as we talked about, like that these guys being out sort of lends itself to the sloppiness that we've seen. Julian has made a couple of really costly plays at second base.
Yeah.
Here's the truth about that, though. They don't want him playing second base. They want him at AAA right now. Like if they had their druthers.
Right.
I don't think I've ever said the word druthers on a show before. But if they had their druthers. God, I'm turning into such an old
You've
man.
absolutely said druthers.
My druthers?
You said druthers.
No, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
You would know. I don't know. I guess you're the one who has to hear me talk. Julian not only wouldn't be playing second base regularly for them, he wouldn't even be on the roster right now. I mean, they sent him down to AAA similar to how they did with Wallner for like what they called a full reset. But instead, you lose Correa, you lose Lee, you need infield. So you just call him up. But we've seen him, I would say, take a step backward. It's
Well, you mean for this year?
just overall. Like, yes.
Right.
I mean, obviously the production has been down and he got demoted. But I just watching him, he just seems sort of, I don't know, low energy, I guess I would say. Like, he seems to be running slower.
He seems to be worn down.
A little more mistake prone.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just had a bad couple of weeks or whatever. He's gotten some hits and stuff. But
If you go to downtown Minneapolis along Nicollet Mall, or really or downtown a lot of places on the lampposts, they have sort of banners of the various Twins players and so on. And the restaurant we were at yesterday, we looked outside the window and there was the Julian banner sitting in there. Those banners are usually reserved for the guys that you think are going to be some of the bigger names on the team for that year. And I was talking to Chrissy and I looked at it and I said, "Do you see that name?" She's like, "Yeah, boy, what a tough season he had." And I said, that reminds me of Jose Miranda last year. Jose Miranda had a banner like that last year, and you get to August and you're like, "What the hell happened?"
although with him,
projected for
we
this.
know it was an injury.
Right. Well, that's right. That's right.
That explained it.
That's right.
And now he's come back pretty well, though he's slumped down lately too. But
I'm sure Kirilloff has had that banner. I am sure.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like we've had guys, and some of them have.
But that's the disturbing part, I would say, about Julian. Is you're 100% right. They don't put those banners up about guys they worry might be at AAA in the middle of the season.
That's right.
But Kirilloff, Miranda, a lot of times, Buxton for that matter, Correa, they're giving away. The other day they gave away a Correa jersey.
Right.
And the commercial they kept flashing on the broadcast said, look just like Carlos Correa. And I wanted to be like, nope, he's not wearing his jersey. You'll be wearing his jersey that day. He won't be. I guess he might.
He has orthotics. You can win the Carlos Correa orthotics.
And with Julian, it's like there's this banner or whatever. What happened to him? I would almost feel more. Not that injuries are a good thing, but I would like a logical explanation for what happened, other than he was just playing over his head last year. I mean, maybe that was just the best version we're going to see of him.
To be fair, even at this time last year, we were saying, Miranda, it doesn't seem to be the shoulder to seem to be the problem. He's just swinging all
but we did know the shoulder problem existed.
We did know
there's been no indication that Julian has had any sort of injury, and maybe there's something going on. But so we've seen him make some bad plays. I would say take a step backward, and then the other guy that I think this has been a topic since they acquired him in spring training, but Manuel Margot. I mean, I don't know what happened to him. And he's over the last 2 months, he's hit okay. Like he's hit roughly as well as they hoped he would hit, which is like a slightly below average guy, decent batting average and contact, but no power.
Right.
But obviously the overall numbers are really bad because he started so slowly. But the more surprising part to me are just like, I don't understand.
He was known for his defense.
He's a horrible outfielder. He was a Gold Glove caliber center fielder.
Listen, seeing him get thrown out from second base.
Well, there's that too. Yeah,
on that throw made me think there's just something going on. Like
I think he just got old. He's 30.
He got
30
really
or
old
31.
really fast, or he's something going on with his legs or something.
I mean, he's certainly slower, but it's one thing to be slower, and that's the danger of, we've talked about this with like Buxton over the years. He's already kind of bucked this to some extent, no pun intended. Buxton bucked it. Oh, boy. If I had my druthers, I would never say that.
So
but here's what I'm saying.
You finish your point.
When you get to 30, center fielders can fall off a cliff more so than any position, I would say, other than maybe catcher. Catchers wear down because of wear and tear at that age.
Yes, as do center fielders.
But center fielder, you just lose athleticism and speed. Basically your whole from the point you debut, you're as fast as you're going to be probably. And if you look at Margot, his sprint speed and stuff like that has fallen. But the weird part is, okay, so you could like talk me into, like early in the season, it was like, oh, they thought he could be the backup center fielder, but he's lost some juice here, so they're going to play him mostly in a corner. And I'm like, well, that's unfortunate, but at least he can be a good corner outfielder with a decent bat. It's not the worst role. He's been worse, I would say, in left field than he has been in center field.
For sure.
I mean, it doesn't seem to be a speed and athleticism thing in left field. Yeah. I mean, it's some of the routes he's taken, he gets completely turned around on a play. It seems
to have trouble tracking the ball.
Yeah, I mean, there's been multiple balls that I can think of at home where it got lost in the lights or whatever.
It seems they're all in left field.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That I don't think the Twins could have predicted because, he was less amazing defensively last year, certainly than he was the previous 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
And he's aging. He's 30, I think. But you would at least expect him to be a competent left fielder. And
He
it's
looks
been bad.
Willinghamish out there.
Yeah. Which
I mean,
the excuse he had was he couldn't move. I don't know what Margot's excuse. So, yeah, that's been one of the more disappointing pickups. Not that we thought he was going to be a big impact guy or anything, but we at least thought, okay, that can fill the Michael A. Taylor role. Now, the weird part is Michael A. Taylor has hit like 160.
Yeah, right.
Now,
Yeah,
he's surely been significantly better defensively.
Yeah,
but he hit so poorly that the Pirates benched him, and then the other day put him on waivers, and I'm pretty sure he cleared waivers. So, which means the Twins and every other team passed on just paying $1 million for him.
Right.
Which tell you how far he's fallen since this time last year. They could really use last year's version of Michael A. Taylor. Unfortunately, I don't think that exists anymore anywhere.
That's it. Even with Michael A. Taylor.
Yeah, Michael A. Taylor. So that's been part of the the sloppiness that we've talked about. But again, this goes back to if people were even sort of healthy, Julian would not be playing second base. Margot probably wouldn't be playing left field at least as often. Right. He certainly wouldn't be playing center field at all. Yeah. So yeah, I think that plays into it. And
etymology of druthers.
Oh, you looked that up? Yeah.
I just took.
This is what John pays attention to when I'm talking because he knows I'll just go.
I've heard you plenty.
John does like university level research on his phone while I'm. Yeah. Go ahead, druthers.
I'd rather.
Yeah. If I had my rather, like if
I'd rather to druthers.
Okay.
Druthers is
it's like if I had my way,
right?
I'd do this. If I had my choice, I'd do this. I get it. Yeah.
I'd rather to druthers. Yeah.
If I had my rather, I'd rather. Yeah. Okay.
It's turning I'd rather into a noun. Right. U.S. thing.
I like that.
Not an old English thing. It was a colloquial.
That was a dumb Yankee.
US
is that what you're saying? One of us dumb Yankees.
That's it.
All right. So, yeah, September 1st, I would expect Lee. I would eventually expect Louie Varland, and it could be September 1st. He, interestingly...
Yeah, I saw this.
He pitched 5 innings 2 days ago.
But as a reliever.
And I think they might have done that to some extent last year while they were sort of shifting him down, because what that at least does is forces you to alter your pregame routine.
Right.
So, yes, you're still throwing 5 innings, and the reason they might do that is... altering your pregame routine is like the first step towards transitioning to the bullpen, but by also then allowing him to pitch 5 innings, if someone were to get hurt like now this week, he could just jump right in and make the start for them. So it's like holding off the last possible second before you fully switch to the bullpen. It would be my assumption. I know that
they have not announced anything like this. No,
I'm much more confident, barring a setback, that Lee will be the ad on the position player side on September.
It was more of like a opener/starters setup than it was
the guy went 2 innings
appearance, right? But I mean, also clearly Varland didn't have any trouble last year, kind of switching into that role, getting ready in a hurry.
No, I think Louie is like, you put a quarter in Louie and you point him in the right direction. And he goes.
I think that's
and I'm saying that as a credit to him.
I say the same way.
He's been up and down here a lot, and some of his best performances actually have come when he just gets dropped in for a start and then sent back. And I know that's not the best from his point of view, but that's where some of his best just sort of, here you are, go pitch. Right. And he's done well in that.
And I don't even mean that in terms of like keeping your mind clear. I mean it in terms of like, I think you give Louie a wall to run through, you can expect Louie to run through.
Well, that's
wall.
true too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
I want to say last year
he looked kind of like the all shucks.
No, he's a killer.
We know that's what I mean.
I would say he's like
he's the redheaded sort of.
No, he's like if you ever saw clips of him wrestling in high school,
right?
He's like he's a nice pit bull. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way.
That's exactly right.
An unassuming pit bull.
That's right.
I know people don't like when people with pit bulls think they get a bad rap, but I'm not saying it like that. Here's the other thing I wanted to clear up on him.
He means it as a compliment to pit bulls.
Yeah, why not?
That's right.
And then you have Pitbull, the great musician.
That's right.
One of our greatest talents.
One of Chrissy's favorites. I saw him in concert in Vegas.
Becky also likes him for some
reason. Oh, God. His concert was awesome.
Yeah. But I saw a few people talking about this or asking questions about this. So last year around this time, we were having this identical conversation about Louie Varland. And they eventually shifted him to the bullpen, I think on September 1st, certainly early September. And he pitched great in the bullpen, and he made the playoff roster as a reliever, and then he went back to starting this year. We talked at the time about how he preferred to start.
Yeah, right.
But to the point we just the discussion we just had about him and his motivation and how his mind works, they said, okay, we know you'd prefer to start. Are you willing to go to the bullpen? And he said, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, right,
and he pitched well in that role.
Of course.
And now I see people going, well, the reason they're not moving him to the bullpen again, or they're considering it longer, is because he's refused to go to the bullpen. No, not true, so. Even a little bit. He hasn't refused anything at any point ever. All he said was, hey, I'm willing to go to the bullpen. This was last year, but
next year I'd like to start.
I would like to compete for a starting spot still long term. Don't rule that out for me. Well, that's a perfectly reasonable. There isn't a single person on the Twins who viewed that in a negative light.
Right.
And the way he transitioned to the bullpen and did well was viewed very positively. So yeah, I want to squash that notion because I don't think that's even close to the reality of it. So yeah, I would expect to see him in September. The funny part of all this though is we mentioned this
You're saying it would be Louie Varland's druthers to be the starting pitcher.
It would be his druthers, to be the starting pitcher. The weird part of all this, bullpen's on fumes, blowing games, defense looks bad, they're running into outs, the offense is not at all consistent, has a couple of good games a week and then just goes 7 innings with nothing. The thing everyone was worried about 3 weeks ago, which was the starting rotation.
Right, yeah, that's fine.
Look, it hasn't been perfect. Bailey Ober had a horrible start. But for the most part, David Festa has looked really good.
Yeah.
And, his overall numbers and production is average-ish. But first of all, that's acceptable from a rookie stepping in. And the way he's doing that, or sort of the trend he's going on, I mean, he was so good.
He does not look overmatched
against the Braves.
No, that's right, yeah.
The changeup and the slider looked good, and he was throwing strikes. And I'll tell you, this is a little behind the scenes. Maybe they showed the video. I'm not sure. So we talked to him after he actually took the loss, I guess, against the Braves. Yeah. But he pitched so great for 6 innings and then was allowed to stay in to start the 7th to face Ozuna, who, first of all, is going to finish top 5 for MVP probably. Right. He's just a killer at the plate. And walked him after getting ahead 1-2.
He's got a chance to win the Triple Crown, doesn't he?
I don't know. But he's going to have 40 homers and all that. Okay. Got ahead 1-2 and then just couldn't get him to chase an off-speed pitch.
Right.
And then walked him and then got removed. That was his last batter because there was lefties coming up. And then Caleb Thielbar came in and gave up some damage. That run gets tacked on to David Festa, and I believe he took the loss. The Twins, by the way, on a related note, Twins bullpen has the worst inherited runner strand rate, I guess, in baseball. 45% of their inherited runners. Half of all runners they've inherited have scored.
The guy who used to take care of that was Caleb Thielbar.
Yeah.
Right? Caleb Thielbar was the fireman in the 5th inning or the 6th inning.
The two best I've seen at that over recent history are Caleb Thielbar and prime Tyler Duffy.
I was going to say, Tyler Duffy.
Funny?
That's exactly right.
And that's maybe that's a hard role. But yeah, Caleb Thielbar got a shot, gave up a double to Matt Olson that scored the run on Festa. But Festa to me has looked extremely encouraging. Oh, so I was going to say, so after that, he's talking to us, the interview that I think they may have shown on Bally or whatever, but he cannot get over that walk. I mean, and that was the run that lost the game. But he's getting asked, you won a career high 6 innings, you struck out 8 or whatever. You were walkless through 6 innings. You only gave up 3 hits. Is this a step forward? And he's like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. He's like, I know I'm too hard on myself, but I cannot get over walking him in that spot.
That's just so funny for somebody for him, especially because that was the knock against him. Right, the knock against him in AAA was, or AA, AAA, minor leagues, etc.
Control.
He has trouble with too many walks, right? Yeah. And then
we haven't seen that at all.
And I was going to say, and he hasn't been that at all. Yeah. That has been almost a strong point for him. And certainly it was. Certainly was in this last outing where he went 6 innings and didn't give up a walk during it.
Yeah.
And now
you get a chance to begin the 7th. Now he was like, I wasn't sure if that was my last batter. It doesn't matter. I just look at it as that guy, then move on.
Right.
And look, it's a great hitter, but yeah, he was as mad at himself as I've seen anyone be in that room since Sonny Gray last season at various points.
All right.
That's his high level of anger was like an average post-start Sonny Gray. Before we talk about some other stuff, let's talk about our next couple of sponsors here. The first one,
more beer.
Is Brixworth Beer, who is a sister, brother, cousin, would you say?
They're all in the same family. They're all owned by the same family, Brixworth Beer Company, North Loop. Just 2 blocks from Target Field, kids.
I think it's a perfect pre and post game
Yeah.
twin spot,
Yeah.
or link spot, or soon
Yes.
wolf spot. In that they have a great patio when it's
They
nice out.
check all the boxes.
It's like, even for a lazy person like me, it's within walking distance.
Right.
They have good beer,
Yep.
good food, not only burgers and wings and stuff, but Detroit style pizza, which I've had, and
Yes.
is really good.
Really good. It was voted the number one Detroit or pizza in Twin Cities by Washington Post or something.
So
right?
Bricksworth beer, it's
and by the way, they also have a parking ramp right next to them.
yeah,
Yeah,
and one of the better sort of private patio kind of
that's right.
in
It's
the North Loop.
it's got a warehouse feel to it.
So it's in the old Derby
Long-
spot, if
yeah.
you're familiar with that, but it's just a few blocks from Target Field. Bricksworth beer. They also have a Burnsville location, but
That's right. So one block
one
from
in
Target
Norfolk.
Field, right by Gate 6, where the North Star line is. Just Google Bricksworth. That's BRICKSWORTH, and follow the signs to their great patio.
if you are looking to buy or sell a little property here,
Yes,
we have someone that can help you
it's
do
a
that.
changing market right now here.
Yeah. So the way it works, like if you sell a $400,000 property, it's the commission, like the standard structure is 3.3% on like the listing side.
Right.
And that's like over, I don't know, 10 grand,
12,000.
12 grand.
Yeah.
Over
Right.
12.
Yeah.
Dan Hodgin.
DANNHODGIN.
Yes. Will help you for a set fee instead of a commission. And the set fee is $6,000.
That is correct.
So you're saving at least that much and probably a little bit more on like a standard $400,000. If you sell $1 million house, you're going to save even more than that.
And this is somebody who covers it all. He's 5-star service since 2001. This is an experienced guy, 23 years doing this. He'll help you identify your goals, search for properties, evaluate the market value of your property, prepare and negotiate the purchase, all the stuff that complete the sale. And he doesn't even charge a broker commission to buyers or sellers. He really, really begs you not to just do the guaranteed offer crap.
Yeah, no.
where they completely lowball
You want someone who's going to actually work with you.
That's right.
and do stuff.
Take care. Save yourself some money and talk to Dan Hodgin. Here's the best thing. He's a listener. He's a huge Twins fan, and since he costs $6,000, he just redirects you to his website. If you go to Twins6K.
6 the number, so twins6k.com.
Right.
You can learn all about Dan Hodgin and the offer he has right now.
That's right. That's Twins as in your favorite team and 6K as in his flat fee.com. That's twins6k.com. Dan Hodgin helping you from start to finish. And as a bonus, here is his bumper music.
Call Dan Hodgin, he's your man. He'll sell your lodging for just $6,000. From western Wisconsin to the Twin Cities land. At twin6k.com, find Double N Dan. He'll give you his all for just $6,000. Don't find your dream home or sell yours today. Use your noggin, find Dan Hodgin at twin6k.com.
That was the bumper music courtesy of Stuart Rose and Dan Hodgin.
You mean jingle?
Jingle, that's what you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
We
too
call
much-
it bumper music.
No,
they call it
different
jingle.
things.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Bumper music's like coming in and out
When
of commercial.
Stuart Rose writes stuff for us, it's bumper music.
Oh.
When he
Yeah,
does it for,
I guess that's
for him,
true.
it's a jingle.
Yeah, we got to put out like a, you know how people have like a Christmas album or something?
Because we got a new one on the Patreon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen, one thing that you can do, even if you're not a member of the Patreon, is if you go to our Patreon page, the first 5 minutes of the episode is usually there for free.
Right.
You can preview. We give you the first 5 minutes free. And if you listen this week on Wednesday's episode, you're going to hear the first music, which is brand new music that we just got from
Richard Whitman.
It's Hurt, Buxton's Lament, which is up to
Basically,
to Radiohead's Creep.
It's
Right.
pretty good. So
And
we
it-
played like the jingle version,
Yeah, we
intro
played the
version.
45 seconds of that.
And then at the end of the episode, played like it's like a 4-minute, like there's like full choruses and like
That's right.
different.
It's really good. To listen to the whole thing, you've actually got to become a patron. But I would encourage you to just zip over there and check out the first 5 minutes.
we
of
have
that.
certainly double-digit songs.
Oh
Well
my God,
over.
for sure.
We probably might be closer to 20. So yeah, I wonder we should put them out. I feel like we.
They're not really our property.
Well, some of them are.
I
We pay
guess
for
some
them.
of Yeah, it's true. It's true. Some of them are. Yeah.
Yeah, much like with our guests, I'm very in favor of
I would
paying
like to do
people for
something
their.
like that. Yes, that's right.
I would say time, but even if it only takes 10 seconds to record a jingle for us, if it's funny or good, let's do it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a few other things here. So, and we talked about the bullpen. They're bottom 3 out of 30 teams in ERA and WPA since the All-Star break.
Okay. I was going to say.
Which is now 6 weeks, basically. No, they're like slightly below average now for the full season. And then, like I said, they lead the league in inherited runners allowed as a percentage, and it's the worst in Twins history, 45%.
I mean, last year about this time is when they started pulling a rabbit out of their hat.
That's sort of why.
Right? And so I'm not freaking out yet about it.
But I don't know where these rabbits are coming.
No, I
don't even think they have a hat right now.
That's right.
So, I mean, last year we were kind of lining this up. We were saying, Brock Stewart was on his way back. They were going to shift Louie Varland to the bullpen. Chris Paddock was on his way back, and it was going to come as a reliever. It's still Louie Varland. You can do that. I don't think Chris Paddock is coming back. And Brock Stewart's out for the year. So, and they don't really have like another version. You might, in some world, if Paddock had stayed healthy or Joe Ryan had stayed healthy, we might be sitting here going, what about Zevy Matthews as a multi-inning reliever or David Festa or something like that? But those guys are already in the rotation. So it's not that
and they might be available for, let's say, the postseason. But they've, like we keep saying, they still have to make the postseason.
Well, and the odds of them being used in big spots in the postseason after not pitching at all as relievers in the regular season are going to be pretty low, which is the whole reason for sort of transitioning Varland there in September. So he'd be it's not impossible for them to just jump into the bullpen, but you're down Correa, you're down Buxton, you're down Ryan, you're down Stewart, you're down Paddock, you're down Brooks Lee. At some point, you're just down. And their depth, I think, is just worse than. It's certainly worse than they would like. I mean, we've talked a lot in past off seasons and during seasons. I mean, think how important their depth was last year. Yeah. Some of it was rookies stepping up. Some of it was guys like Donovan Solano who were just like last minute additions who were filling in the blanks so well. And this year, because Margot has not held up his end of the bargain, I would say, and because DeSclafani, who was their starting pitching addition, hasn't thrown a pitch for them, and then even worse than that, they essentially went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts on bullpen moves during the offseason and trade deadline. Topa hasn't pitched. Stallmont, Jay Jackson, Okert, and then their one trade deadline addition, Trevor Richards, have all been cut after performing terribly. That's why the bullpen's short. I mean, you added 5 guys, and none of them are end up even making the end of the season with you. So, that's That's partly because they dropped the payroll. That's partly because they didn't have the payroll to add guys. But it's also because they made bad choices on these guys.
These guys were not supposed to be high leverage guys, right?
But you would think out of 5, somebody would have emerged.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's like 3 tiers and then a 4th tier, right? There's the high leverage, medium leverage, low leverage. And then the 4th tier is like, I'm not on the team no more. Right. Like that's right. And what, I think what they were doing is adding a bunch of guys that they thought could, be medium leverage guys. Like, let's get these guys to medium leverage. Well, they didn't end up being medium leverage. They ended up being low leverage, and then it ended up being gone.
They're become unusable. Right. They wanted them to be, useful, and guys were instead not usable. And I think you start to add that up, plus the injuries, what you're left with is a Swiss cheese type of roster here that can still win games, but I don't know.
But you end up having a 7th inning that you have to get through, and you've got a couple lefties, and you bring in a low leverage guy, and it doesn't work.
So let's see. We can talk. We'll talk Kepler stuff here maybe at the end, but we also saw, speaking of flexibility and depth and all that, Royce Lewis has been working out at second base pregame. I watched him do it 2 days ago, I guess, pregame. I would describe the workout that I saw him do as, pretty beginner level. Sure. It's not like the most intense. It was basically just very casually taking ground balls and flipping them to second base, doing a couple like positioning type of drills and stuff. But
it wasn't practicing the double play pivot or the throw down to second to tag out the stolen base runner, right?
It wasn't the workout of a guy who thinks he's going to be there tonight. You know what I mean? It's the workout of a guy who's doing what the Twins asked, maybe, increasing flexibility a little bit. I don't think it would be his choice to do this, to play second, but much like with Varland, if you tell Royce to do something, he'll do it with a smile, and he'll do it well usually. Sure. And so I give him credit for that. And I do think it would really help them a lot if he even had any ability to play second base, even for 2 innings. let alone make starts over there, because for 2 innings would allow them to make some more in-game moves and bring back a little of the flexibility that was lost with Castro stuck at shortstop.
Well, especially with Lee out right now.
Right.
Yes. Well, I mean, when
Definitely.
Brooks Lee comes back, I think things switch around a little bit in terms of...
But longer term,
Right.
second base could potentially be a better spot for him. 2 ways. One, we've seen him struggle with throws at third base.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
A little last year and a lot this year, and
He got some practice this week.
he made all the plays this
Yep,
week.
that's right.
But I also think just watching him at third, I think he's okay at third.
I do too.
I don't know that I've seen him look great at third very often, especially this year. And I don't know, second base,
I think he could end up being an above-average third baseman.
sure. But
But he hasn't
the
been.
throws are a big issue. At second base, the pre-torn ACLs version of Royce Lewis, if he didn't play shortstop, was going to play center field or second base, because those are the spots where speed and athleticism are the biggest keys. But this version of Lewis is just much bigger and much slower, and that's partly because he just had terrible injuries to his legs, and partly because he's bulked up and become a slugger. And so you would that sort of body type or skill set would seemingly fit a little better at third base than at second base.
Sure.
But second base, the throws are a lot easier. It's more about, you get a little bit more leeway in terms of at third base, it's more just react and dive, or react one step this way, one step that way. Second base gives you a little more room for creativity, I guess, for lack of a better word, I would call it. And so it's possible he could be as good or better there. And then the real factor is Brooks Lee's going to be in that infield with him somewhere.
Right.
Brooks Lee has looked phenomenal at third base and really good at second base.
Phenomenal at second base. Right. Yeah, right.
I think it's very likely that Brooks Lee would be better than Lewis, maybe substantially better than Lewis at any spot. Right. So the real question is, where is Lewis the best or the least bad? And where is the gap between Lewis and Lee the biggest or the smallest?
Right.
And so that's what you're kind of deciding both ways. So it's possible that one or both of them ends up at not their best spot because it's better as a duo. Right. So I don't know. I think
anyway, you got Jose Miranda floating around the infield someplace too.
But this is why him being able to play second in the short term, even a tiny bit of second, just being comfortable over there, is key. That's because against right-handed hitters or pitchers, we've talked about this. You have first base, third base, DH, and the 2 corner outfield spots. You have 5 lineup spots, and you have 6 bats that you would run in there. 4 left-handed hitters, which is Kepler, Larnach, Wallner, and the switch-hitting Santana. Right. And then you have your best 2 right-handed hitters, which is Royce Lewis and Miranda that you want in there. Well, that's 6 guys for 5 spots. Right. One of them has been sitting pretty much every game. They kind of alternate, like they just one sits once a week, basically.
And that's not the worst thing, given
some
of the health things
but
going on. Right.
What then happens is you still need someone to play second base, so you end up with Farmer or Martin or Julian or somebody at second base. While one of those guys sits on the bench, and then it also hurts your in-game flexibility because even if you pinch hit for one of the second basemen, you then need to burn a second player to go play that position defensively.
Correct.
Well, if Royce Lewis could play a little bit of second base, you could get all 6 of those guys in the lineup.
Right.
You would replace a weak bat at second base with Royce Lewis, and even if he just were coming off the bench in those spots, you have more ability late in the game to involve second base and sort of your mixing and matching. So we'll see. It didn't seem imminent to me, but the way I view it is why have him be different than just about anybody else other than the catchers who aren't really going to play other positions, although we've seen Vasquez play third base.
That's true.
Santana, who's a 38-year-old first baseman. Buxton, who just plays center field because he's the best center fielder. And Correa, who plays shortstop. Right. Everyone else moves around. Right. The outfielders all move around to multiple spots. The infielders play at least 2 and sometimes 3 spots. The guys are moving around in the games. And so why treat Lewis differently? Yes, he's a star player, and yes, he's someone to handle carefully because of the injuries. But he hasn't shown the ability to be so good at one position that you would just go, he's our third baseman for the next 20 years or whatever. That's right. Especially if it makes the overall utility of the roster better or worse. I think that should be a factor.
I'd also be interested to see, just while we're talking about infield positions, where Brooks Lee plays when he comes back.
Yeah, he's played short, second, and DH so far at AAA. But it's only been 4 games or something like that.
That's right. Now, he was
My guess is he'll play second base when he comes back.
My guess is second base just if they're worried about that shoulder,
Right.
if that shoulder is
that's what we saw at the end.
completely healed or something.
He
Right.
had like a 3-week run where he took over at shortstop from Castro because they just thought he was a better shortstop. But then he switched to second with Castro back at short, and we were like, that's weird. But it turned out he was having pain when he was throwing, so they were trying
That's
to
right.
limit that.
But it'd be interesting to see if he ends up playing shortstop for a while. That does bring back the whole sort of Willie Castro flexibility
Right.
option that reduces the need for Royce Lewis to be playing second base or something
True.
like that. Although
you could still use Lee as could move to shortstop mid game.
Well, you could. Yeah, that's exactly. That would be my point. Is that if you end up having Lewis or somebody comes off the bench, one of those 6 bats that whichever one is sitting comes off the bench,
they can stay
to pinch
in.
hit. They could just stay in and have Lewis take over second base, and
Which
Castro
is huge for them.
Fill in wherever the hell
That's such a
pinch hit
big
appearance
part
was.
of their strategy is not just using a pinch hitter purely as a pinch hitter or a pinch runner or defensive, but bringing them in and changing the structure of the lineup for like 2 or maybe more turns through the lineup. And so you've seen that countless times where a guy's second at bat after coming off the bench, they'll deliver a key hit or at least come up in a key spot. And so you lose that a little bit when you got a pinch hit and then use someone else defensively. So yeah, that would be it would be interesting. I think, where would I play him? I'd need to see Lewis at second base a little bit.
Sure,
I mean, I saw him take 20
And
ground
just so we're
balls.
clear, he hasn't played second base. Not even. I mean,
He played 1 game in the Arizona Fall League.
4 games in the Arizona Fall League
Okay.
and 1 game in his entire minor league career.
And he said, when we asked him about that, he said basically, I had to play everywhere in the Arizona Fall League, and also keep in mind this was before both knee surgeries.
well, that's true too.
So,
right? Yeah, right.
He's not going to play center field anymore either. He played center field in the Arizona
You're
Fall
also
League.
putting a guy at the double play pivot point
Right.
where
That's the thing
who can't guard himself on a slide into second base.
That's the thing he pointed to. Although it should be noted, that's a much less dangerous place to be because of the rules changes.
Sure, that's
you
a
can't
good
go
point.
crashing into
That's a good
second
point.
base. We've
You
seen
were
a
right.
lot. Used to be multiple times per season, some second baseman or shortstop or the runner would get taken out and have a significant knee or ankle injury or something, and that has been way cut down because you can't crash into the second base anymore.
The other dangerous part about second base is that sometimes the catcher can hit you in the nose with the ball.
If you're on the White Sox, yeah. That was a good clip.
Did you see that?
Yeah. It's almost like they're not a professional baseball team.
Oh my God!
They're definitely going to set the all-time loss record, by the way. They have to go like 12-18 or something down the stretch, which would be by far their best stretch of the entire season. Well, that's not going to happen. They're going to be the worst team ever. Like in modern
Modern
in the
baseball.
1800s,
Right.
there was a okay. We talked a little bit about. Well, first of all, a lot of this stuff as news happens, we talk about on the Patreon Mondays and Wednesdays. So, like Okert and Richards were DFA'd since our last free show, and Michael Tonkin was claimed off waivers for now a second time this season.
And has already made his first appearance.
Yep, he's lasted as long already as he did the first time, which was 1 appearance. And Scott Blewett basically is taking that other spot. So basically, they DFA'd Richards, who was their trade deadline pickup, and I think walked or hit 13 guys in 13 innings and had 7 wild pitches.
Right.
And then Okert, who was acquired in February for Nick Gordon and was supposed to be the number 2 lefty and just struggled in anything resembling a spot that mattered from start to finish almost, and just became kind of unusable in leverage spots. So they're gone. Okert already cleared waivers and is now at AAA with the Twins.
Oh, he's sticking
I'm
around
going
with
to
St. Paul.
assume
Okay.
Richards will do the same because the reason that happens is they want their money.
Of course.
And I'm not saying that's a negative. I would too.
Right, of course.
But you have to accept the assignment to keep your entire contract.
Omaha's lovely this time of year.
Yeah, St. Paul is lovely.
Yeah.
Why not? So that's the bullpen. Like we said, Varland might be joining it soon. I think Josh Winder should, or at least I would give him another opportunity.
And
here
I think
soon.
we're finally past that 15-point.
I think either today or
15
tomorrow.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Varland was on that too, which, by
Right.
the way, they couldn't have called up Varland this whole time either. I think today's like
Well,
day
that's true.
14 or 15 with him.
Dobnik, too, right? Dobnik got
Yeah.
sent down the day before Winder, as I recall.
The Tonkin thing is so funny to me because, like, we've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this since 2002. In 2008, he was the Twins' 30th round draft pick.
Yeah.
The draft doesn't even have 30 rounds.
No.
This was out of high school. I think he went to high school in California, and he, I thought, was a really good reliever prospect. Actually, he started initially, then he got moved to the bullpen. He's huge. He's like 6'5". He threw now, 93 to 95, and he was similar back then. And back then, that was really hard to throw mid-90s. Had good breaking ball, put up really good strikeout numbers as a reliever in the minors. I was very high on him as a good major league reliever. He never quite reached that level consistently, in my opinion. But he spent parts of 4 seasons. I think he threw almost 150 innings for the Twins from like 13 to 17 or something like that, I want to say. And maybe a little before that. And then, they cut him loose. He had like a 4-something ERA, good strikeout rate. They cut him loose, and he bounces around. He goes overseas. Then he comes back. He's with the Braves. He then comes back to the Twins in April by way of the Mets, who they paid like some small nominal fee to kind of jump the waiver line and back in April and acquire Tonkin. And I thought, okay, this makes sense. Like, he's $1 million reliever. At that stage, even though it was early, guys like Jay Jackson were already looking not great, and Topa was out. And I thought this is like almost like another low wattage offseason ad almost. Then they used him once, and they needed the bullpen churn, kicked him out, and he gets claimed by the Yankees and puts together like 30 good innings for the Yankees to the point that he's like pitching some high leverage spots, but then he really goes into kind of a nosedive for like 15 innings for them. They, make some trade deadline additions and need to change up the roster, so they cut him loose. The Twins snatch him back up on waivers. Yeah. Now they have him again, and they're at a point now where the need in the bullpen is obvious. Like, they just need competent arms in the bullpen. Like, he doesn't have to fill a high he just needs to be able to throw like, a 4-something ERA worth of 1 and 2 inning appearances.
They don't need a high leverage guys. They just need some medium leverage guys.
Honestly. Like, they just need a guy who can pitch the 6th inning down a run and not turn it into a blowout.
Right. When you've got a favorable matchup. Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. The problem isn't with this bullpen isn't that they don't have enough high leverage arms. Is that they're that's not the only problem. That's a problem with every bullpen, right? Everybody wants more high leverage arms, right? But the problem is that there's just such a drop off between the top 4.
There's no medium leverage.
That's right.
And so the hope is that he can do that. I think that's definitely possible. I mean, he's 35. He's bounced around. This is like his 4th or 5th team this season. Right. But it's funny. The teams that claim him are good teams. Right. Yeah. He's been with 3 teams this season. They're all playoff teams. Right. A lot of guys bounce around and are getting claimed by, Oakland and Pittsburgh and teams like that, White Sox, because it's like, okay, we'll take a chance on him. On one hand, he's making it to the back of the waiver wire line, but also why do the rebuilding teams need a 35-year-old reliever? But the teams that are picking him up are successful teams. Yeah. So I think it suggests
that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I think what it suggests is this is a guy who has proven he won't blow up. Right. Or, he can be competent. Nobody has any visions of him, pitching the 8th inning.
Probably not a clubase problem, all that other stuff, you know what I mean? Like, but
I mean, the Twins know better than anybody. Like, he's a good dude. He's maybe most famous. He's Jason Kubel's brother-in-law.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And that's been true. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was true when he was in high school already. That Jason Kubel had married his sister, I guess.
I guess so.
I think that's the case. Because if I heard right, and I think I might have heard this directly from Terry Ryan a month or 2 ago when he was at Target Field, that they were getting ready for the draft, or it was like, early that year, and Kubel basically said, hey, maybe it's my sister's boyfriend or something is a good pitcher in California. You should take a look at him. Yeah. And they did, and then they drafted him, and he was, he's going to pitch 10 years in the majors probably. So I don't have any visions of Michael Tonkin, closing out games or anything, but he's got stuff, and, if he can throw strikes consistently, he can certainly be that medium leverage.
He can be keep games if he can be the 5th best guy in the bullpen. First of all, that's not that high a bar to cross at this point, and second of all, it would be really valuable to have a 5th
if you could get Varland and maybe Winder in a similar type of role, you at least have a little bit of ability to keep some of these games close and not wear everyone off.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't think any of those are guarantees, certainly, but we'll see. And the thing that Baldelli talked about in the wake of letting go of Richards and Okert, and we may see this in September as Correa and Buxton come back and Brooks Lee comes back, some position players are getting dropped, and not all of them can get optioned to AAA. Right. So there's going to be tough decisions, and what Baldelli said, which I agree with, we talk about this all the time on the bullpen front, is the depth you have in your mind that you need on opening day to get through a 6-month, 162-game grind of a season is completely different than the depth you have in your mind that you need to play September and maybe October.
Right.
And you'd love to have as much or more depth.
Right.
But the reality is you had to use that depth, and the Twins know that better than anybody. And so you get to this point of the season where it's like there's 30 games left, sprint to the finish line. We want to put our most representative possible team on the field. And so, with a guy like Varland, you're keeping him at AAA as starter depth because you might need it in June or July.
Sure.
You might need it in September too, but guess what? You just need him on the pitching staff because he's better than the other guys you've been using, even as a reliever. Same thing with, some of the position player decisions that they're going to have. Same thing with parting ways with a guy that you acquired less than a month ago, or a guy in Okert who is certainly well-liked and has been on the team all season.
Right.
Maybe these guys are going to be good next year somewhere else. Maybe they would have turned it around. The Twins didn't have time to wait and see because the type of depth they needed was contributing depth, not just sort of break glass in case of emergency depth.
You also aren't in as much danger of losing that player to another team at this point of the season, too, it feels like.
True,
you know
although
what I mean?
even if you were, what do they care?
Right.
I mean, if somebody claims Trevor Richards on waivers, it's not like he was in there.
No, but my point is, like in June or July, if you'd put Okert on the waiver wire, he probably more likely to be picked up than right now.
Right, because you were trying to keep as many guys as possible as almost like precautionary depth.
Right.
This is contributing depth that they need now.
Well,
It doesn't do them any good for a veteran to just be stashed really at AAA now. You want them, you need them if they can help you now. And if they can't help you in mid-September, when do you think they're going to help you?
Well,
that's part of the
you also
equation.
just have fewer teams that really care at this point.
Well, that's
you know
true.
what I mean? Like the Rays might have picked up on Okert because they're like, oh, well, we need the lefty just in case. They're probably not as interested right now. So.
Yeah, well, and you're also getting teams drop useful guys on waivers they did last year too. Right. Before we talk about a few other things, let's talk about our last two sponsors. BetterHelp is a sponsor of the show. Here's the way BetterHelp works. If you've been maybe thinking you want to talk to someone about some issue that you've been having, but what we call the barriers for entry are like, it seems like a lot of hassle to make this call and go this place and all that. You can set up with BetterHelp. Typically within a few days, they can set you up with a real licensed therapist who can specifically talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. And the beauty of it is, if you want to do just a Zoom type of live chat, video chat, you can. If you don't want to be on video, you do a little phone call type of thing. If you don't like talking on the phone, you can just do a live chat, typing.
If you're worried about the costs, they generally come in a little bit lower than that. You don't know. Just finding a therapist, they can help you with that as well. And if you don't like your therapist, you don't have to worry about starting over anew. They can help you find a different therapist.
Or running into them at the grocery store.
That's exactly right, yes.
You can rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Gleeman and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP, betterhelp.com/Gleeman. Our last sponsor for the day is Factor.
I miss Factor. I haven't had a Factor meal for a while.
Yeah, John, you've been eating vacation
chicken
food for a while.
I know.
You got to get a little healthier, John.
Similar.
That's coming from me, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to, I would love having Factor meals available and in the fridge and ready to go when we come back from vacation, because that means I don't have to go to the grocery store, etc. We love having that set up for us. But also, there was also if I still had kids, this is the perfect thing to have on hand as the school year is starting.
That's true.
As the school year is starting and you're just trying to hold it together while the kids are running from soccer appointment to their piano lessons to whatever else. Factor meals are just an absolute godsend.
They have a different menu every week that typically has 35 different meals to choose from, plus 60 different types of add-ons that you can choose too, so you can have new flavors. Tons of variety. You can help you with your wellness goals, or just get dietitian approved meals, or they have vegetarian options. They have more family friendly options. You can pick all that different stuff,
and they're delicious. These are restaurant quality meals,
and they're ready in 2 minutes.
That's right.
No shopping, no prep, no cooking. Just restaurant quality ingredients. Including shrimp and filet mignon, salmon, and all that. So go to factormeals.com/Gleeman50, like 50. And use the code Gleeman50. And the reason it's Gleeman50 is you get 50% off your first box plus 20% off the next month. So that's the code Gleeman50 at factormeals.com/Gleeman50. Get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Okay. Let's see. And a few other things. Oh, let's talk. So on Tuesday, Kepler was on first.
Yeah.
And was it a tie game?
No, we were behind at that point. I think we were still down, right?
Okay. Santana
4-0,
doubles
I think.
into the corner.
Yeah.
And Kepler, to my view, because I was watching him on the play, not that closely.
Kepler was on first base.
Yes. Santana hits a clear double.
Right.
Kepler, who had missed the previous 2 or 3 games with knee soreness,
Right.
And as we've talked about, he has a quote unquote loose body in his knee since the beginning of the season, and he was on the IL after fouling a ball off his knee on opening day. I think.
Right. Yeah.
So clearly wasn't moving well,
right?
But was playing, made some plays defensively and stuff. He kind of, I would say, jogged around second and was headed to third, and then slowed down and then sped up and then coasted into third, and was very clearly just watching him in real time. And they showed this on TV also. Frustrated or upset,
puzzled,
with the direction he received on the play from Tommy Watkins, the Twins' third base coach. And then I went back and looked at it a million times on replay. But what Kepler says, I think, if you're reading lips, he comes in and he goes, start, stop, why? Or something like that.
Right.
Like what you kept. So if you watch it, as Kepler's going to second, he's getting waved around fully.
Right.
Then I think Tommy didn't believe that Kepler had looked at him or had picked up the sign of come on.
Right.
So then Kepler, and maybe he had picked it up, but just wasn't running well. So it seemed like he wasn't running fully.
Right.
So then Tommy puts up like a sort of partial stop sign because he's seeing that he's not coming around second, on fire basically. But then I think once Kepler looks up and sees him, Tommy briefly says, come on again, and then holds him up because he doesn't think at that point he's actually going to be safe at the plate.
So it really was a start-stop situation.
And so then Kepler's like, what's the deal? Now, we asked Baldelli about this post-game, and Baldelli said he talked to Kepler about it afterward. He was like, I don't want to get into it. It was a private conversation or whatever. I would suspect that Kepler's point of view is valid in that Tommy Watkins changed his sign that he gave 2 or possibly 4 times, depending on your point of view. I think from Tommy Watkins' point of view, what he would say, and I didn't talk to Tommy Watkins afterward about this, is that he wanted to send him the whole way. He was going to be waving him clearly the whole way, but for whatever reason, whether it was just Kepler's not moving well, whether it was Kepler's not moving well and also wasn't running his hardest, or it just was as simple as he hadn't looked up and been aware and picked up the come on sign the whole time. And then once he saw the speed at which Kepler was coming around second, I think Watkins thought to himself, well, can't send him now. Okay. And then he realized, man, this is a legit double. I should be sending him. And then by that time, he had to put on the brakes, basically. Yeah. So that ended up costing him. Now, I'll also say this. You had a runner on.
Run did not score.
Right. But here, there
was one out.
That's getting tacked on to the blame that's going to either Kepler or Watkins. But the truth is you had second and third with 1 out.
Right.
You're allowed to score a run there. Right. Feel free to put the ball in play. Successfully once or even twice there. You can score even more than 1 run sometimes. Yeah. And so, yes, it was a missed opportunity. But first of all, if you would have sent him the way that played out, he would have been out at the plate. I'm almost certain of it. And then we saw the next day or 2 days, Tommy Watkins sends Manuel Margot on the play we were just talking about, and he's dead meat at the plate. Right. On that one.
Now, later in that game, we saw Wallner score on the exact same play, basically, from first base all the way home.
But Wallner got a good break and ran hard.
That is correct.
Manuel Margot broke initially back on the play, and at no point was Kepler chugging.
Yeah. Really. I was trying to figure out what the hell happened on that Margot play.
Well,
I did not notice that
he ran out of gas, too. It wasn't so much he broke back, but he froze kind of, which, okay. And then
it was a hard hit ball.
Yes. It was going to be a bang play. I just think, as we talked about earlier, he's just a lot slower than he used to be, and he just ran out of gas coming around third, I would say. So that's the we talked about this in regard to third base coaches a lot. I don't think there's any fan base ever
Right.
We've been doing this for 20-something years. I can certainly tell you that Twins fans have hated the third base coach that entire time. There's been 8 different ones. And it's my perception that all 30 teams have hated all 30 third base coaches that whole time. And it's a little bit like being an umpire. You only get noticed when you screw up royally. Right. Even when you have like a mediocre night, people are just like, probably should have sent him there. You only get noticed and get talked about. Other than like some funny joke he told or something maybe that I passed along.
Sure.
If you were to look back and find every more than 10-second discussion surrounding Tommy Watkins over the last 5 years, none of them have been positive.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, he sent this guy and he was a dead duck at the plate, or a play like this where they screw up the communication on it.
And I tell you, both of the plays that went poorly at home plate, I didn't think either of them was necessarily Watkins' fault. To me,
I mean,
maybe the Margot one was he should have held him, but I think from Watkins' standpoint, he was like, I shouldn't be holding him. Like,
I think the Margot one was a lot from Watkins' point of view. I think the Margot one was a lot worse because there wasn't any like miscommunication on the Margot one. Right. Like he had time, I thought, to make a meaningful decision. Now he clearly just misjudged either how fast Margot was going or how fast Margot is capable of going at this point. Whereas on the Kepler one, I don't think it was all Tommy's fault by any means. I think Kepler wasn't looking and wasn't running that hard, but also there was no shot then. You can't once you're changing the sign more than twice.
Yeah, sure.
In real time, as the play is being made, you just get a hold. It's over at that point. Right. So, but again, so 2 things can be true. We like to say that at the same time. The 2 things in this case are everyone thinks every third base coach is the worst because that's the job. If you're competent, no one ever notices. The moment you're not competent, people notice. Right. Well, there's a confirmation bias in there. That's just if you had 50 coworkers and you only ever interacted with one in horrible situations, they'd be your least favorite coworker. Sure. But it could also be true that Tommy Watkins is below average among third base coaches.
It could be.
I mean, it doesn't rule that out. I don't know how you would even quantify that. I really don't. Like, you can certainly do their sends and their non-sends and how often they get guys thrown out and compare that to like average rates, but without truly going back and looking at the overhead camera shot of all these plays, and there's going to be dozens a year, and even then it's going to be some subjectivity.
Of course.
And timing them out and saying, would this have been safe, would this not? I don't know how you can do that. I do think that there have been several ugly throwouts at the plate per season in recent years, and there's been some, why did he stop him there? But I think that's just par for the course of this job for 162 games.
I also think there've been at least a couple times where I thought, that was a really good
sense.
Sense. Right.
I think that's worth really noting too.
Right.
Similar to, we always talk about how like the perception of stuff once it gets locked in, like the contact play. Oh, it's terrible. Why do the Twins only ever make outs on the contact play? My thing is, when it works, make a mental note of that because there's there's math behind it. And so I do think, especially last year, I can remember 2 or 3 plays to left field where he sent a guy and got them a run where they otherwise would have been held up at third. So I don't know how to quantify that, but both things can be true. These are rough, and it's one of those things that gets magnified when you're struggling.
Yeah,
because every run you're having to scratch and claw for every run. And, in some of these spots, like the Margot situation, a couple of singles followed, I think. Yeah, and you would have really been in business there and could have maybe broken the game.
With the Margot thing, what hurt the most about it has happened with 0 outs. Right? Like that, at that point, if there's even a doubt in Tommy's mind that Margot's going to score, you've got to hold him there. Right? Now, given how the Twins have been performing with runners on third base on 1 out over the last week and a half.
The Kepler plays the exact opposite.
Right.
He held him, and in his mind, he probably thought, well, there's 1 out.
Right.
Now we got second and third 1 out. Well, they go 0 for 2 and they don't advance those guys.
That game, they did that 3 to 4 times. Right. Yeah, it was crazy.
So, yeah, I think also just with Kepler in general, I wrote about this yesterday a little bit, but, he's been pretty bad here now.
I'm starting to wonder if he should be the 6th man out in that 5-minute.
Yeah.
That 5-spot thing on a more regular basis.
But, yeah, going back to he falls the ball off his knee immediately this season, opening day. It was definitely during the opening series. Plays through it and goes 1 for 20.
Yeah, that's right.
Goes on the IL, talks about the loose body in his knee. He misses like a month, basically. Something like that. Maybe 3 weeks. Yeah. Comes back on absolute fire.
Right.
Just, player of the week type stuff.
Yeah.
Like just walk-offs and hitting doubles, launching homers.
We're talking about whether or not he should be getting a qualifying offer.
Yes.
By the end of May, yeah.
For about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, not a full month. Because by the end of May, he is starting to cool down, but his overall numbers are still really good.
Of course.
But if you look from, I think, May 25th until now, so that's essentially 3 months, like three full months, basically half of a season. He has like a 608 OPS in 70 games. The weird thing is he has only 4 homers in 70 games, but the really strange part is 11 walks in 70 games with like 56 strikeouts. Kepler, if anything, is always a guy who will put the ball in play, control the strike zone. He gets on base even when his batting average is low because he draws walks. For him to have 5 or 6 strikeouts for every walk and to basically just become a free swinging without power makes me wonder if he's been playing through significant injury, which is easy to connect those dots, obviously, or if he's just lost some hand-eye coordination, or we're starting to see kind of the slippage because Kepler has been a frustrating player to me, at least for his whole career, because you look at the end result and it's like he's an average-ish hitter and a good right fielder that's a decent regular, above average regular, but not a star. But his highs have been so high, whether it was 2019, whether it was the second half last year where he was maybe their best player.
Right.
That you go, why isn't this? And he looks great. Like he's a good athlete. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's a graceful, good defender. All this stuff.
Right.
Why doesn't it click more for him? But then I worry, like, if he's lost a little bit of bat speed or he's lost a little bit of reaction time or whatever, is that kind of hand-eye coordination so essential to him? Because now the power vanished and the plate discipline vanished. Right. Well, those are his 2 best things. Right. Like he's not going to be a high batting average type of guy. He's not going to be a guy who slashes singles and doubles all over the place. Right. The defense to me has still been pretty good. I'll give him credit on that.
True too. Even with the knee. Right.
But, the base running obviously has come up as an issue. He's just become such just so little aggression on the bases.
Yeah.
He was once one of their fastest guys and best base stealers, and he's lost a step or two.
He's got a bad knee, too.
But I mean, even 2-3 years ago, I know there was some frustration of him going second to home, first to third, because he's a good athlete and a plus runner, which is probably not anymore a plus runner, but he's very cautious on the bases, which maybe that played a part into the Tommy Watkins decision too. So I mean, Kepler is sort of winding down his Twins career, and there's still a month left to salvage this thing, but there was so much optimism based on how good he looked last year down the stretch, and then heading into his free agent walk year. Like you said, talking about, if he has a great season, they can make him the qualifying offer, get a draft pick for him, or maybe have him return for a year. Yeah. And he's having one of the worst stretches of his entire career and doing it in a way where it's like, I don't think it's unlucky. He seems to, from a skill point, deteriorated, or he's just hurt.
Listen, we talked about how the Twins have to start making some tough decisions right now in terms of playing time or about roster decisions, that sort of thing. Like they're at that point of the season.
Yeah.
And of the 6 guys that are playing the 5 positions, well, let's see. Kepler is the one who's performing the worst. He is also got the least future with the team, and he's probably the most hurt. So, right?
Well, Santana's got a little, but I get what you're saying.
So as a result, I don't know exactly what is tilting anything in his favor other than, he's been around for the organization since 2009.
Now, we've also
2012 or whatever. It's something.
2008? Or wait, 2008?
No, it couldn't have been that early. Was it that early?
Well, it's half his life. So 15 years.
All right, okay.
Maybe 2009?
Yeah, 2009,
Something
I think.
like that.
Yeah. I mean, so listen, give the guy his due, pay him his respects and such, but from a logistical / logical standpoint, who should be getting...
Well, right. Just based on how they've performed over the last 2 or 3 months, for sure, or even the season overall. But here's the thing.
But
the
also
problem with
future at-bats and also...
But here's the problem with Kepler. He's the best defensive version is going to have him in right field. For sure.
Okay.
And we've seen in the past, unfortunately, the thing we talked about with him is we've had this conversation with him before.
Right.
And then he gets hot for 2 months and he's one of their best players. Right. I mean, the last year. Right. He had a horrible first half last year. We were like, I don't even think they're going to decline his option. They're going to trade him. They're going to whatever. August and September, he played at an MVP level. We've seen this from him before. Now, not enough. It's few and far between, but never before has there been a veteran guy where this conversation plays out so much where it's just like, I think it's time to move on. He's not one of their best options. And then you go, well, we had the same conversation, not quite at this point, like 3 weeks earlier or 4 weeks earlier than right now. But then he was one of their best players. So
it would be interesting to see them, kind of as a team, a limp into the postseason. Him, literally limping into the postseason, and then he gets onto because he's got a little Rosario in him. You know what I mean? He's got a little. Suddenly, he frustrates you, and then suddenly he just catches fire for 3 or 4 weeks, and you're like,
although not in the playoffs ever so far.
Well, not yet.
But yes, I agree with you.
Rosario hadn't done it before the playoffs yet.
That's true.
Before the
but now
Braves
he
either.
has.
Right, that's right.
Rosario had a homer, I think, in the playoffs for us, for the Twins.
That might be right.
I can't remember. We're talking about very small samples, unfortunately. But yeah, since late May, Kepler has the worst OPS on the Twins by 60 points, and the 6th worst OPS in the whole league among guys who had 200 plate appearances or something. It's rough, and I think I didn't think he was coming back anyway. Obviously, the qualifying offer would have been an interesting discussion if he had a really, really good, healthy year. But there's no way you can risk paying him $20 million next year. I mean, his next contract might not be $20 million total. I'll be very curious to see.
It might be a 1-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be like a 3.45 type of deal, 3 years, $45 million or something. But he's still relatively young. He's a good athlete. He's a guy people think of as a good player. Yeah. He's a good defender, left-handed bat. But yeah, if he, like you said, limps to the finish line, I could see it being a 1-year, $8 million deal as a bounce back somewhere. I don't think it would be with the Twins, but I mean, their defense, unfortunately, needs Kepler a lot of the time because in the outfield, especially if Buxton's out also, if you trot out like Wallner, Margot, Larnach, or Wallner, Austin Martin, Larnach, that's a really bad outfield defensively. Like that's a just below average at all spots. So you wouldn't want that with like one of your fly ball guys necessarily on the mound. But we'll see. I had one other.
He does a nice job of getting into the gap, especially, and also over to the line.
I think Kepler, as an overall player, is not underrated. If anything, I think the perception of him has been more that he's plays regularly like his best, when in reality that is not the case. Yeah. I think he gets kind of perceived as the best version of himself. Yeah. But I will say, defensively, I think he's one of the most underrated players in the history of the Twins.
Yeah, I agree.
In part because it's hard to be great as a corner guy, and people just think, well, he doesn't play center, which he hasn't in a very long time. But, I mean, he's consistently, even now, when he's banged up, he's very, very smooth in the outfield.
Going back on the ball, coming up on the ball.
Into the gap, I think he's really good. Yep. Doesn't have the greatest arm anymore, but let's see. I had one other thing that I wanted to mention. Well, we talked about the worst OPS. Here's the best OPS in August for the Twins.
Okay.
Which is one more game in August. But Wallner, 1,032.
Okay.
So 1,000 OPS is like MVP level type of stuff.
Yeah.
Jeffers, 950.
Yeah.
That's been a nice thing
What's
to see.
his batting average, though?
I don't know. It's a lot of homers.
Yeah, right.
But then, okay, I'll take it. Larnach, 871.
Huh. That one surprises me a little bit.
Well, he had the two monster game against St. Louis.
Game, right.
And then actually, he had a 4-hit game, then the 2-homer game. So, and then Vasquez, 801. So the catcher duo has been great this month.
You're right.
And that's it above 800. It's Wallner, Jeffers, Larnach, Vasquez. Imagine that quartet is leading the way. Yeah. The guy who got demoted in April, the guy who basically replaced him, sort of, and then your two catchers, both of whom at various points of the season have looked unplayably bad.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's an interesting mix. And
then, when Lewis isn't in that group, when Miranda isn't in there,
Miranda has the lowest OPS on the team in August.
Yeah,
and Lewis is not far. You look at like the strikeout to walk ratio for him; it's really gone the wrong direction. I wonder if he's just not healthy or whatever.
Basically, ever since those two guys have come back off the IL, I've been worried about them.
Yep.
So,
Mr. I don't slump has basically been slumping since he said that. Which,
well, we already know Miranda when he's banged up can be not the same hitter he is when he's.
And then last but not least, two little quick prospect updates. Number one, Manuel Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah.
Who I know we get questions about all the time. And believe me, I ask every week. Somebody with the Twins, can you tell me an Emmanuel Rodriguez update? I asked Falvey a week
We should
ago.
say who he is for the casual sports fan.
If you're an hour and a half into the podcast, you probably... yeah, he's
number 3 overall prospect still.
Their number 3 overall prospect.
Yeah, right.
He's probably a top 25 prospect in MLB. He's 21, I want to say, at Double-A corner or center fielder. Probably going to end up as a corner outfielder. Unreal plate discipline. 100 walk type of year guy. Good athlete, left-handed hitter, 30 homer power, 20 homer speed, and has just been demolishing AAA this year in about 40 games.
Double-A. Right.
Double-A, excuse me. Yep. Like league leading type of stuff, but he's been out.
But he messed up his hand.
And then he re-injured it sliding into second base. So he's been out since like early July, I want to say, like 2 months. And he was previously out with a similar injury or the same injury. If healthy, he almost definitely would have been at AAA a month ago.
Right.
I mean, he was putting up like an 1,100 OPS at AA. Right. And once you get to AAA, they haven't really needed that because we just talked about how they have more than enough of that type, a left-handed corner bat. But he could have been playing some center field potentially for them. He's back. He's beginning a rehab at Single A. They were rained out yesterday, but he would have been playing. So it'll be his first game action in like 2 months. So that'll be good. Just to have him hopefully finish on a high note, a healthy note. Not that he's going to be called up to the Twins in September or anything. It wouldn't shock me, I guess, if he got to AAA for a little bit. But they just need him to. You just want him to make up for the lost time and get some at bats in and be healthy and finish on a decent note and go into the offseason, as a legit top 20 something prospect in all of baseball. And then the Twins' number 1 prospect, Walker Jenkins, has been on a very good tear lately. Since he got promoted to High A Cedar Rapids from Low A Fort Myers like a month ago, basically.
As a 19-year-old, right?
As a 19-year-old at High A, and he had missed time with a hamstring injury. He got hurt on opening day at Low A. So
quite a bit of time with that hamstring injury.
A lot of time. And he started a little slowly at High A. Homered last night. He has 14 extra base hits in 25 games there. He's slugging like 510 or something like that. And that's with the slow start. Over the last like 10 or 12 games, he's got like 4 or 5 homers, bunch of doubles, hitting 400 plus, making a lot of contact. 19 at High A. He was the Twins' the number 5 overall pick in last year's draft.
Right.
And at the time, if people were listening back then, they probably remember us talking about it. It was considered one of the best drafts in terms of top-end talent, where each of the top 5 guys were viewed as, like, in an average draft, they'd be a number 1 pick. And we've seen it because 3 of them are already in the majors.
Right.
Paul Skeens was the top pick, and he's just phenomenal, obviously. And even guys beyond the top 5, there's like a dozen guys already from that first round in the majors, which is incredible.
It's nuts.
And so the Twins ended up with Walker Jenkins, who was probably like 3rd or 4th on most people's list there. But he's also the guy who is the furthest away probably from the majors. Max Clark was also a high school pick too. But, Paul Skeens was basically ready for the majors on draft day.
Yeah.
And then like Wyatt Langford, similar. Dylan Cruz just got called up actually yesterday, the day before. I think he was the number 2 pick. So,
but given the success that he's having late in this season here at Cedar Rapids, I wouldn't be shocked if he starts next year at Double-A.
Yeah, I would.
If he starts next year at Double-A, then the clock is ticking.
Right. He's going to get to the majors. He's 19 now. Like, not this is his 19th season. He's 19 for another like few months, I think. Even if he begins next year at High A, I think it would be one of those where you just put together 3 good weeks. Right. They bump you to Double-A.
Right. And you got a decent chance to make it St. Paul before the end of the year.
And once that happens, we always say, once you get to Double-A, you can choose your own adventure at that point, basically, especially if you're as well regarded as him. I don't think they're going to rush him to the majors. I mean, look, you could be cautious with him and have him debut before his 21st birthday easily.
Sure.
His 21st birthday is this time 2 years from now.
Yeah.
But not even this time, but like 2 off seasons from now. So if we're having this conversation in 2016, like in this room 2 years from now,
2026.
Yeah, 2016, they could have really used
I was
him.
going to say, I was waiting
Yeah.
to see where you were going with that. Okay.
He was, how old was he in 2016?
Back in 2016,
He was
we would have
10.
been saying he's one step from
He's one step
Double A and
from
Double
middle
A's
school.
one from the majors. Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 2016.
He's
one
like
step from middle
working on his
school.
multiplication tables and stuff at that point. But
Also at high A, like if you're looking for a late summer road trip, Cedar Rapids is a pretty good place to go
Yeah,
watch.
they have
some
this year's
prospects
first round
right now.
pick also.
They also have this year's first round.
Casey Culpepper. Yeah.
Casey Culpepper's there. He hasn't been tearing it up, but he's
Yeah.
up there. And as just as a point of reference, he's 21 years old, and people are excited about him already being at the high A,
Right.
given how quickly he was
played
drafted.
3 big-time conference college baseball and
Right.
was a star.
Right.
And is now on the same team, batting first and second,
Yeah.
usually with Walker Jenkins, who,
2 years
if he had
younger than
gone
him.
to college, would be a freshman right
Right.
now.
That's
like in the middle of his freshman season. So age is very important with I mean, at some point, the guys just have to produce.
Right.
Like, it's not like this was one of my early things I pounded the table about with Luis Rivas for the
Right.
Twins.
Yes.
Because the entire premise of Luis Rivas, they called him up at like 21 or 22, and he was their everyday second baseman for 5 years, and he stunk. He stunk both sides of the ball,
Right.
and he never got any better. And the whole time, I was like, are we sure this guy is anything? And people just kept saying, well, just being in the majors at 22 is really valuable. Most of those guys become stars. And my point was, yeah, but it's a self-selecting thing because usually the teams are smart enough not to call up some mediocre prospect at 22. So they only call up the studs at 21 or 22. Yeah. So there is some of that. But for the most part, if a guy's performing well in the minors, especially the low minors, what you want to do is say, how old is this guy relative to most of his competition?
Right.
And for Culpepper is right on line. He's 21. Right. He's at high A. A lot of 21-year-old draftees are at low A. He's doing fine. But for Walker Jenkins and Emmanuel Rodriguez, for that matter, to be 21 and at double A and crushing.
Right.
That's the sort of stuff that takes a guy from, oh, this is a good prospect who's producing well to, ooh, this guy could be really something, because it puts you in line to be a 21 or 22-year-old debut. Whereas, like, we get excited about, like, Matt Wallner right now. He's 26.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you can get to that point at 21, 22, you can really do some things. So, okay, we'll be back. It is going to be a while before you see us on the free side. But here's the good news for you. We will be doing 2 episodes per week, typically Mondays and Thursdays, over the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
So if you are interested in more Twins talk, join the Patreon, especially if you've never given it a try. I think you'll like it there. It's ad-free.
Yes.
We do more reactions to like news in the moment or game recaps, the next day, talking about a series that just ended or something.
I'll have been watching the Twins live in Tampa Bay for one of those.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So.
Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. We would love to have you join us for the stretch run. It'll cost you about $10 from now until whenever the season is over, basically, for the Twins. Probably.
Special thanks to all the sponsors for this show. That includes BetterHelp and Factor and Dan Hodgen and Brixworth and RotoWire. And then a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Black Stack Brewing, now being distributed all of Greater Minnesota. Stop by your favorite liquor store or the Black Stack Tap Room and grab your local favorite brew or try something new.
All right. See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Gleeman